Ambassador Talar Vesh stared at the star map floating above his desk. Red marks covered most of the display. Each red dot meant another world that had fallen to the Korath Empire. Each red dot meant millions of his people were dead or enslaved. The Vallani had always been peaceful. For 3,000 years, they had solved problems with words, not weapons. They traded with other species. They made friends across the galaxy. They built beautiful cities and created art that made others weep with joy. But words could not stop the Korath war machines. Taylor touched a control panel. The star map zoomed out to show the entire galaxy. The red infection was spreading faster each day. Soon there would be no blue dots left. No free Vallani worlds. No hope. Ambassador. The voice belonged to High Counselor Nira Kess. She stood in the doorway of his office. Her usual bright robes were now dark gray, the color of mourning.
Have you found anyone who will help us?
Taylor shook his head. The Zentari military fled to the Outer Rim. The Malari Union signed a peace treaty with the Korath last week. The Thorian Confederation. He paused. They surrendered yesterday. Nira sat down heavily in the chair across from his desk. She looked older than her 60 years. The weight of leading a dying civilization showed in every line on her face. What about the hegemony? Surely they understand that if the Korath win, they will be next. The hegemony is already building defensive walls around their core worlds. They say they cannot spare ships to help us. Talar's voice was bitter. 20 years of trade agreements. 50 years of friendship. None of it matters now. Outside the window, Talar could see the capital city of Velinar. The streets were full of refugees from fallen worlds. Families carrying everything they owned in small bags. Children who would never see their home planets again. The Korath Empire had appeared from the dark regions beyond known space 5 years ago. Their ships were black metal monsters covered in weapons. Their soldiers were 2 meters tall with thick armor and no mercy. They conquered planets not for resources or territory, but because they enjoyed crushing other species. General Borax Grimm led the Korath forces. Intelligence reports said he collected the skulls of enemy leaders. He had personally killed the rulers of 12 different species. Now he wanted to add Vallani skulls to his collection. There must be someone, Nira said. Her voice was desperate. What about mercenaries? Soldiers for hire? Talar activated his computer terminal. I have been checking the mercenary databases. Most of the good companies are already dead or have run away. The ones that remain want payment we cannot afford. His fingers moved across the holographic display. Names and organizations scrolled past. Red Cross Mercenaries, destroyed at the Battle of Kepler Station. Iron Wolf Company, contract terminated, whereabouts unknown. The Crimson Fleet, disbanded after their leader was killed. Wait. Talar stopped scrolling. Here is something I have not seen before. A new entry had appeared in the database. The information was basic and strange. Organization name Humanity. Location, Sol System, Sector 7841. Classification, Military Contractor. Status available, Humanity. Nira leaned forward to read the screen. I have never heard of them. Talar checked the database details. The entry was old, possibly centuries out of date. It listed basic information about a species called humans. They were described as omnivores, average height 1.7 meters, from a planet called Earth. The military classification said they had space travel and weapons technology. The records are incomplete, Talar said. But look at this contact frequency. It is still active. He ran a quick search through galactic news networks. No recent mentions of humanity. No battles won or lost. No trade agreements or diplomatic meetings. It was as if they had vanished from galactic society. Maybe they are a small company, Nira said hopefully. Small companies charge less money. Talar was already preparing the message. He wrote it in standard galactic trade language, the same way he would contact any mercenary group. He explained the situation simply. The Korath Empire was destroying the Vallani Confederation. They needed military help. They would pay whatever price was asked. Are you sure about this? Nira asked. We know nothing about these humans. We know they have not run away yet, Talar replied. That is more than anyone else can say. He attached star maps showing Korath fleet movements. He included intelligence reports about enemy ship types and weapons. He added financial information proving the Vallani could pay for services. Everything a mercenary company would need to make a decision. The message was ready. Talar looked at Nira one last time. She nodded. He pressed the send button. The message traveled through space at faster than light speed. It bounced off communication relays and navigation beacons. It passed through areas of space that had been peaceful just months ago and were now burning war zones. 3 days later, the message reached a small space station orbiting a yellow star. The station had been built to watch for dangerous asteroids, but it also monitored radio signals from deep space. Lieutenant Park Min-ho was drinking coffee when the computer alerted him to an incoming transmission. He expected it to be another shipping schedule or weather report. Instead, he found himself reading a desperate plea for help from creatures he had never heard of. "Captain Kim Jae-won," he called across the communication room. "You need to see this." Captain Kim read the message 3 times. Then he read it again. The translation software was working correctly. Aliens were asking Earth for military help. They thought humans were a mercenary company. "Sir," Lieutenant Park said quietly. "What do we do?" Captain Kim stared at the star charts attached to the message. Entire worlds marked as destroyed. Billions of lives lost. An empire of killers moving across the galaxy like a disease. "We forward this to Earth Command," he said, "and we forward it now." The message continued its journey to Earth. Within hours, it was sitting on the desk of Admiral Lee Dong-min at Global Defense Headquarters. He read it once, then called an emergency meeting. In the Villani capital, Talar waited for a response. Days passed with no answer. He began to think the humans were just another dead mercenary company, another name in a database that meant nothing. Then his communication system activated. A signal was incoming from the Sol system. The message was short. "Help is coming. Prepare for our arrival." Taylor stared at the words on his screen. He called for Nira. She read the message and smiled for the first time in months. Neither of them understood what they had started. Neither of them knew that Earth's entire military was already preparing for war. Neither of them realized that they had not hired a small mercenary company. They had asked humanity for help. And humanity was coming. Admiral Lee Dong-min had seen many strange things in his 30 years of military service. He had watched the first human colony ships leave for distant stars. He had commanded the defense fleet during the asteroid crisis of 2387. He had negotiated peace treaties with 3 different AI collectives, but he had never received a message like this one. The holographic display in the Global Defense Command Center showed the alien message in floating text. Around the conference table sat Earth's top military leaders: General Kim Tae-ho from the Space Marines, Admiral Park Ji-woo from the Fleet Command, Dr. Yoon Hana from the Xenolinguistics Department, Colonel Shin Ye-jin from Communications. "Let me understand this correctly," Admiral Lee said slowly. "An alien species is asking us for military help. They think we are a mercenary company, and they are offering to pay us to fight a war against something called the Korath Empire." Dr. Yoon Hana nodded. She was the only person in the room who specialized in alien languages and cultures. "The translation is accurate, Admiral. The message uses standard mercenary contract language. They believe they are hiring us for military services." General Kim Tae-ho leaned forward. His scarred face showed years of combat experience. "What do we know about this Korath Empire?" Dr. Yoon called up the intelligence data attached to the alien message. The main display filled with star charts showing red zones across an entire spiral arm of the galaxy. Ship specifications appeared next to images of black, weapon-covered vessels. Battle reports described planetary bombardments and civilian massacres. Based on their own intelligence reports, the Korath are a militaristic species focused on conquest and destruction, Dr. Yoon explained. They appear to have no interest in negotiation or peaceful coexistence. Their military doctrine involves complete annihilation of enemy civilizations. Colonel Shin Ye-jin studied the ship specifications. Their technology appears to be roughly equivalent to ours. Maybe slightly more advanced in some areas, but not overwhelmingly superior. Admiral Park Ji-woo was reading casualty reports from fallen worlds. 15 billion Villani dead in the last 6 months. That is not war. That is genocide. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what they were looking at. Somewhere in the galaxy, an entire species was being systematically exterminated while the rest of galactic civilization watched or ran away. "Sir," General Kim said quietly, "what is our policy on intervention in alien conflicts?" Admiral Lee stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth's capital city. Below him, 10 billion humans lived in peace. Children played in parks, families shared meals, students attended universities. all of it protected by the fleet that orbited overhead. Our policy, he said, is that we do not stand by and watch genocide. He turned back to face the room. The Volani are not asking us to conquer territory or settle political disputes. They are asking us to stop killers from murdering their entire species. That is not a political question. That is a moral one. Dr. Yoon Hana raised her hand. Admiral, there is one complication. The aliens clearly think they are hiring a small mercenary company. They have no idea they just contacted an entire spacefaring civilization. Our response might surprise them. How surprised will they be? Admiral Lee asked. Colonel Shin activated her computer. She pulled up Earth's current military roster. Numbers began appearing on the main screen. Ship counts, personnel numbers, weapon specifications. They sent their message to what they thought was a mercenary group, maybe expecting a few ships and 1,000 soldiers. She paused. Our current available fleet strength is 437 combat vessels with a total crew of 150,000. Admiral Park whistled softly. That might be more help than they expected. The question, General Kim said, is how much of our fleet can we commit to this operation? We still need to defend Earth and our colonies. Admiral Lee walked back to the conference table. He looked at each officer in turn. These were people he had served with for decades. People he trusted with humanity's future. How long would it take to reach their location? Colonel Shin checked the navigation data. The Sol system to their coordinates? Approximately 18 days at maximum hyperspace speed. Fleet composition recommendations? Admiral Park was already working on his computer. For an operation of this scope, I would recommend a full battle group. 3 Dreadnought-class battleships as the main strike force, 12 heavy cruisers for fire support, 24 destroyers for escort and reconnaissance, 6 carrier ships with full fighter squadrons, support vessels for logistics and medical aid. Total personnel? Approximately 45,000 crew and Marines. Dr. Yoon Hana looked concerned. Admiral, that is not a mercenary company. That is an invasion force. When the aliens see a fleet that size approaching their space, they might think we are another enemy. Then we will explain the situation when we arrive, Admiral Lee replied. Colonel Shin, prepare a response message. Tell them help is coming and to prepare for our arrival.
Keep it simple.
We will handle the detailed explanations in person. Colonel Shin began typing. The message was short and direct. Help is coming. Prepare for our arrival. General Kim, how quickly can you mobilize a Marine Expeditionary Force? 15,000 Marines can be combat ready and loaded onto transport ships within 72 hours, sir. Admiral Park, fleet assembly time. The ships I mentioned are already in various stages of readiness. Full battle group can be assembled and supplied within 1 week. Admiral Lee nodded. Dr. Yoon, I want you on the flagship. You will be our primary contact specialist when we meet these Volani. Study everything in that message. Learn their language, their culture, their psychology. We need to understand who we are helping. Yes, sir. One more thing. Admiral Lee's voice became serious. I want complete media blackout on this operation until further notice. Earth's civilian population is not ready to learn about galactic warfare and alien genocides. We will brief the Global Council after we have more information. The meeting ended with quiet efficiency. Each officer knew their role. Within minutes, orders were flowing across Earth's military networks. Ships that had been conducting routine patrols received urgent deployment commands. Marine bases across the solar system began loading equipment and personnel. In shipyards around Earth and Mars, workers began the complex process of preparing a battle fleet for extended combat operations. Ammunition was loaded. Fuel tanks were filled. Medical bays were stocked with supplies. Fighter craft were armed and tested. Admiral Lee returned to his office and sealed the door. He sat behind his desk and stared at the alien message still displayed on his screen. Somewhere in the galaxy, people were dying while their own neighbors did nothing to help. He thought about his grandfather, who had served in Earth's ancient wars before humans reached the stars. His grandfather had always said that the true test of a civilization was not how it treated friends, but how it treated strangers in need. Tomorrow, humanity would face that test. He opened a secure communication channel to the fleet commanders who would lead the mission. Admiral Park would command the battle group. General Kim would lead the ground forces. Dr. Yoon would handle first contact protocols. This is Admiral Lee, he said into the microphone. Operation Guardian Angel is now active. We have 18 days to reach the Volani system. Our mission is simple. Stop a genocide and make first contact with galactic civilization. Failure is not acceptable. The transmission ended. Across the solar system, humanity prepared for war. None of them knew that their response would change the galaxy forever. None of them understood that they were about to introduce a concept that had been missing from galactic politics for centuries. Altruistic military intervention. The Korath Empire was about to learn that some species would fight for strangers, and the galaxy was about to discover humanity. Fleet Admiral Zenth Mora stood in the command center of Velinar Defense Station, watching his sensor displays with growing alarm. What he saw made no sense. 18 human ships had just appeared at the edge of Vellani space, but these were not the ships of a small mercenary company. The largest vessel was 3 kilometers long, covered in weapon batteries that could level a city. The smaller ships around it were still bigger than anything in the Vellani fleet. "Sir?" his sensor operator said nervously. "I count 47 vessels total. Energy signatures suggest they are all military craft." Admiral Zenth felt ice forming in his stomach. "Is this the Korath? Have they found a new attack route?" "No, sir. The ship designs are completely unknown, and they are broadcasting the identification codes that Ambassador Talar gave to the mercenary company." Zenth stared at the display. In all his years of military service, he had never seen ships like these. They were clearly built for war, but their design was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Smooth curves mixed with angular weapon mounts. Armor plating that seemed both elegant and deadly. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "Let us see who we are dealing with." On the human flagship, Captain Shin Ye-jin was having similar problems. Her first contact protocols had prepared her for many situations, but not this one. The aliens were speaking to her like she represented a hired military contractor. "Greetings, Humanity Corporation," the Vellani voice said through the translation system. "We are pleased that you have accepted our contract. Your fleet size is larger than we expected. We hope this will not affect the agreed payment rates." Captain Shin looked at Dr. Yoon Hana, who was standing beside her on the bridge. Dr. Yoon's expression showed the same confusion that Shin felt. "Admiral Lee," Shin said into her communicator, "we have a situation. The aliens think we are a business. They are talking about payment rates and contract terms." Admiral Lee's voice came through the speaker. "Explain that we are here to help, not to collect payment." Shin turned back to the communication system. "Vellani Fleet, this is Captain Shin Ye-jin of the Human Defense Force. We received your distress call and came to offer assistance. We are not here for payment." There was a long pause. When the Vellani voice returned, it sounded confused. "We do not understand. Are you saying you wish to renegotiate the contract terms? We can discuss higher compensation if your fleet size requires it." Dr. Yoon stepped forward. "Captain, may I try?" Shin nodded. Dr. Yoon activated the communication system and switched to the formal diplomatic language she had learned from the Vellani databases. "Honored Vellani leaders, I am Dr. Yoon Hana, specialist in interspecies communication. We believe there has been a misunderstanding. Humanity is not a mercenary corporation. We are a species, like yourselves. When we received your message asking for help against genocide, our government decided to send military aid." Another long pause. This time, multiple Vellani voices could be heard arguing in the background before the main speaker returned. "Dr. Yoon, you are saying that an entire species has sent a military fleet to help us, for no payment?" "That is correct." "Why?" The simple question hung in the air. Dr. Yoon realized she was trying to explain a concept that might not exist in Vellani culture. "Because it is the right thing to do," she said finally. "Because we do not allow genocide to happen when we have the power to stop it." On the Vellani command station, Admiral Zenth was looking at his staff with complete confusion. His intelligence officers were checking and rechecking their databases. His communication specialists were analyzing the human transmissions for deception. "Sir," his chief analyst said quietly, "their language patterns suggest they are telling the truth. They genuinely appear to believe they are here to help us for free." "That makes no sense," Zenth replied. "Nobody sends a fleet this size without expecting something in return. What do they really want?" Ambassador Talar arrived in the command center at that moment. He had been monitoring the communications from his office. His face showed the same bewilderment that everyone else felt. "Admiral, I have checked our historical databases. There is no record of any species offering free military aid to strangers. The concept does not exist in known galactic politics." "Then what are they really after?" Zenth demanded. "Territory? Resources? Political control?" Dr. Yoon's voice came through the communication system again. "Volani leaders, we understand your confusion. Perhaps it would be helpful if we explained our situation. We are a relatively young species in galactic terms. This is actually our first contact with galactic civilization. When we received your message, our leadership decided that stopping genocide was more important than any other consideration." "First contact?" Taylor repeated. "They are new to the galaxy?" That explained some things but made others more confusing. New species usually tried to avoid galactic conflicts until they understood the political situation. They did not send large fleets to fight unknown enemies. Major Oh Seung-woo, the human intelligence analyst aboard the flagship, was studying the Volani responses with growing understanding. "Admiral Lee," he reported, "I think I know what is happening. The Volani have no cultural framework for altruistic military intervention. In their experience, all military aid comes with a price. They literally cannot understand why we would help them for free." Admiral Lee considered this. "Then we need to prove our intentions through actions, not words. Captain Shin, tell them, we would like to meet in person to discuss the military situation. No contracts, no payment negotiations. Just a tactical briefing about the Korath threat." The Volani agreed to the meeting, though their reluctance was obvious. A small diplomatic shuttle was dispatched from the human fleet. Admiral Lee insisted on leading the delegation personally, along with Dr. Yoon and Major O. The meeting took place aboard a Volani station in neutral space between the two fleets. When the human delegation arrived, they found themselves facing 5 nervous Volani officials who clearly had no idea what to expect. Ambassador Talar spoke first. "Admiral Lee, we welcome you to Volani space. However, we must ask directly, what do you want in exchange for your military services?" Admiral Lee looked around the conference room. The Volani were all sitting stiffly, as if expecting to be attacked at any moment. Their body language suggested fear rather than hope. "We want to stop the Korath from killing your people," he said simply. "That is all. But what payment do you require?" "None." "What territory do you claim?" "None." "What political concessions do you demand?" "None." Talar's confusion was visible. "Then what do you gain from helping us?" Admiral Lee thought for a moment before answering. "We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing. In human culture, that is enough." Dr. Yoon added, "Perhaps it would help if you understood our perspective. Humans have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. When we learned that genocide was happening, doing nothing was not an option." The Volani exchanged looks. Their entire worldview was being challenged. In their experience, military power was used for conquest, profit, or self-defense. The idea of using it to help strangers was completely foreign. "Admiral," Fleet Admiral Zenth said slowly, "assuming we accept your offer of aid, how do you propose to proceed against the Korath?" Admiral Lee smiled. This was familiar territory. "First, we need complete intelligence on Korath fleet movements, ship capabilities, and strategic objectives. Then we coordinate our forces for maximum effectiveness. Your people know this region of space better than we do. Our people have experience in fleet combat." Major O activated a holographic display showing the tactical situation. Red markers indicated known Korath positions. Blue markers showed Volani defensive positions. Green markers appeared as he outlined potential human attack strategies. The Korath appear to be using standard conquest tactics, Major O explained. They are overwhelming individual worlds before moving to the next target. They have not faced coordinated resistance from a fleet designed for peer-to-peer combat. For the first time since the meeting began, the Volani looked hopeful. Admiral Zenth studied the tactical display with professional interest. Your ships are larger and more heavily armed than ours, he observed. But the Korath fleet outnumbers you significantly. Numbers are not everything, Admiral Lee replied. Quality, tactics, and surprise can overcome quantity. The Korath are expecting to fight pacifists and refugees. They are not expecting to fight us. The meeting continued for 2 hours. Gradually, the Vellani began to believe that the humans were genuine in their offer of help. The tactical discussion revealed that both species had much to offer each other. Human firepower combined with Vellani intelligence could create an effective fighting force. As the delegation prepared to return to their ships, Ambassador Taller asked one final question. Admiral Lee, if you succeed in defeating the Korath, what happens then? Do you establish a base in our territory? Do you demand tribute or resources? Admiral Lee shook his head. When the Korath are defeated, we return home. Your space belongs to you. We have no interest in conquest or colonization. The shuttle carrying the human delegation departed, leaving the Vellani leaders to contemplate what they had learned. An unknown species had appeared from empty space, offered to fight their war for free, and asked for nothing in return. General Borax Grimm studied the intelligence reports from his flagship with growing irritation. His scouts had reported unusual fleet movements in Vellani space, but the details made no sense. Unknown vessels? He growled at his intelligence officer. What do you mean, unknown vessels? Commander Thek, his second-in-command, shifted nervously. Sir, our reconnaissance ships detected a fleet of 47 warships in the Velinar system. The ship designs do not match any known species in our databases. General Grimm's massive form dominated the command center of his dreadnought. At 2.5 meters tall with thick armor plating grafted directly to his bones, he was a terrifying sight even to his own soldiers. His collection of enemy leader skulls decorated the walls around his command chair. 47 ships, he mused. Are the Vellani finally hiring mercenaries? Possibly, sir. But the energy signatures are unlike anything we have encountered. These vessels appear to be purpose-built warships, not converted civilian craft. Grimm laughed, a sound like grinding metal. It does not matter. We have crushed every fleet that has stood against us. A few more ships will not change the outcome. He was not entirely wrong to feel confident. The Korath fleet under his command consisted of 230 vessels. Black-hulled monsters designed for one purpose, destroying everything in their path. They had conquered 12 different species and showed no signs of slowing down. Signal the fleet, he ordered. We advance on the Velinar system as planned. Whatever these mystery ships are, we will add their wreckage to our collection. 3 days later, the Korath war fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Velinar system. General Grimm expected to see the usual sight. Vellani civilian ships fleeing in panic while their small defense fleet tried desperately to delay the inevitable. Instead, he found himself facing something unprecedented. The human battle fleet was arranged in perfect formation between the Korath and the inhabited planets. 3 massive dreadnoughts formed the center of the line. Their weapon batteries trained on the approaching enemy. Cruisers and destroyers flanked them in overlapping defensive positions. Fighter squadrons moved in complex patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully calculated. Sir, Commander Thek said quietly, those ships are not fleeing. General Grimm studied the formation through his tactical displays. Someone with serious military training had positioned these vessels. This was not the work of desperate mercenaries or civilian defenders. Analysis, he demanded. His tactical officer, a thin creature named Vesh, worked quickly at his station. The enemy formation suggests they are experienced in fleet combat, sir. Their positioning indicates they understand our weapon ranges and attack patterns. Numbers? We still outnumber them 5-1, sir. Grimm smiled, showing rows of metal teeth. Then they will die 5 times as quickly. Aboard the human flagship, Admiral Lee watched the Korath fleet approach with calm professionalism. This was the moment all their training had prepared them for. 45,000 human lives depended on the decisions made in the next few hours. Fleet status? He asked. Captain Beck Minho, commanding the dreadnought Indomitable, reported first. All weapons charged and ready, Admiral. Fighter squadrons are in launch position. The other ship commanders followed with similar reports. Every vessel in the human fleet was at maximum readiness. Marines were suited up for boarding actions. Medical bays were prepared for casualties. Engineering teams stood ready for damage control. Dr. Yoon, Admiral Lee said, send one final communication to the Korath fleet. Offer them the chance to withdraw. Dr. Yoon activated the communication system and sent the message in the Korath military language she had learned from Villani databases. Korath fleet, this is the Human Defense Force. You are ordered to cease hostile actions and withdraw from Villani space immediately. The response came quickly. General Grimm's voice was filled with contempt and amusement. Unknown species, you have made a serious mistake. We are the Korath Empire. We do not withdraw. We do not negotiate. We conquer. Prepare to join your Villani friends in death. Admiral Lee nodded to his communication officer. Fleet-wide channel. The secure communication network connected every human ship in the battle group. 47 captains and 45,000 crew members heard Admiral Lee's words. All ships, this is Admiral Lee. The enemy has refused our offer of peaceful withdrawal. We are now authorized to use all necessary force to protect the Villani people. Remember, we are not here for conquest or glory. We are here because genocide is happening and we have the power to stop it. Make every shot count. Lee out. The Korath fleet began its attack run. 230 black ships accelerated toward the human line, their weapons charging for the devastating first strike that had destroyed so many other fleets. They never reached weapon range. Lieutenant Colonel Young, Subin led the first fighter attack from her carrier ship. 200 human fighters launched simultaneously, moving in the chaotic flight patterns that had confused every enemy humanity had ever faced. The Korath had never seen anything like it. Their targeting computers were designed to track predictable flight paths. Human pilots flew like they were insane, turning and diving in patterns that seemed to have no logic. What are they doing? Commander Thek demanded as he watched the tactical display. Those flight patterns are impossible to track. The fighters were not just flying randomly. Each pilot was following complex mathematical algorithms that created the appearance of chaos, while actually maintaining perfect formation integrity. It was a fighting style that only humans had ever mastered. The first wave of fighters struck the Korath advance guard like a hammer. Plasma torpedoes and railgun fire tore through ships that had been designed to fight in orderly lines. Korath vessels that had crushed the organized formations of other species found themselves unable to respond to the human attack. Return fire, General Grimm roared. Destroy those fighters! But the human fighters were already gone, diving and weaving through Korath formations before disappearing back into the void. Behind them, a dozen Korath ships were burning or dead. The main fleet engagement began when the surviving Korath ships came within range of the human battle line. Captain Baek Minho fired the first salvo from his dreadnought. The massive railguns that formed the ship's main armament hurled projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The Korath had never faced kinetic weapons of that magnitude. Their shields, designed to stop energy beams and plasma charges, offered little protection against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The first Korath battleship simply disintegrated when 3 railgun rounds passed through it. Impossible. General Grimm stared at his tactical display. No weapon has that much power. His fleet was already in chaos. Human destroyers were using their speed and maneuverability to dart between Korath ships, firing at close range before escaping. The Korath formation, designed for overwhelming firepower at long range, was being torn apart by enemies who refused to fight the way they were supposed to. Commander Kim Tae-ho led the marine boarding actions that truly terrified the Korath. His assault shuttles penetrated deep into enemy formations, targeting command ships and strategic targets. When the Marines breached Korath hulls, they fought with a fury that no enemy had ever shown. The Korath were used to fighting herbivorous pacifists. They had never faced omnivorous persistence hunters who had evolved to chase prey across entire continents. Human Marines in powered armor moved like nightmares through Korath ships, taking objectives that should have been impossible to capture. Sir, Commander Thek's voice was desperate. The humans have captured the heavy cruiser Destruction. They are using its weapons against our own ships. General Grimm watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy he did not understand. These humans fought with tactical brilliance and individual courage that exceeded anything in his experience. Worse, they seemed to genuinely care about protecting the Villani, fighting with the dedication of defenders rather than mercenaries. The tide of battle turned completely when Admiral Lee implemented his final tactical innovation. Instead of trying to destroy every Korath ship, The humans began targeting their engines and weapons systems. Ships that could not escape or fight back were left alive but helpless. Admiral, Captain Shin Ye-jin reported, "We have disabled 60% of the enemy fleet. The remainder are attempting to retreat." Admiral Lee made a decision that would define humanity's reputation in the galaxy for centuries to come. "Let them go," he ordered. "Disable any ship that poses a threat, but do not pursue ships that are withdrawing. Send medical aid to damaged vessels with surviving crew." The order shocked both the humans and the Korath. In galactic warfare, defeated enemies were usually destroyed completely. The concept of mercy toward a genocidal enemy was unknown. General Grimm found himself aboard one of the few Korath ships that still had working engines. Around him, the pride of the Korath Empire was floating dead in space or limping away in defeat. The humans had not just won the battle. They had made it look easy. "Sir," Commander Thek said quietly, "what are your orders?" Grimm stared at the human fleet through his view screen. They were not pursuing. Instead, human medical ships were moving among the disabled Korath vessels, offering aid. 3 weeks after the Battle of Velinar, Ambassador Han So-young stood in the main conference hall of the Vellani Capitol building. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all of whom had come to see the humans who had stopped the Korath Empire. The gathering was unlike anything in galactic history. For the first time in centuries, a military victory had brought species together instead of driving them apart. The news of humanity's intervention had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Ambassador Han was nervous. This was Earth's first formal diplomatic contact with galactic civilization, and the stakes could not be higher. Beside her stood Admiral Lee, who had requested to attend despite military protocol suggesting he should return to Earth. "Are you ready for this?" Admiral Lee asked quietly. Han nodded, though she felt anything but ready. The past 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of cultural exchanges, language lessons, and diplomatic briefings. Dr. Yoon Hana had worked around the clock to prepare her for this moment. Ambassador Talar approached them with a smile that Han was learning to recognize as genuine Vellani gratitude. Over the past weeks, she had grown to respect the gentle diplomat who had risked everything to save his people. "Ambassador Han." "Admiral Lee," Taylor said warmly. "The Galactic Council representatives are ready to meet with you." The formal session began with speeches from various species leaders. Each one expressed amazement at humanity's actions, though their reasons varied significantly. Some praised human military effectiveness. Others were impressed by the mercy shown to defeated enemies. A few seemed mostly concerned about the disruption to established galactic politics. High Counselor Nira Kess spoke for the Vellani people. Her words were translated into dozens of languages for the assembled representatives. 3 months ago, my people faced extinction. The Korath Empire was systematically destroying our worlds while the galaxy watched in silence. We sent a desperate message into space, hoping for help that we knew would probably never come. She paused, looking directly at the human delegation. We thought we were hiring a small mercenary company. Instead, we discovered humanity, a species that travels across the galaxy to fight genocide, asks for nothing in return, and shows mercy to enemies who would have shown them none. The Vellani people will remember this debt for 1,000 generations. The formal presentations continued, but Ambassador Han found herself distracted by the conversations happening in the corridors between sessions. Representatives from smaller species were approaching human diplomats with hopeful questions. Were humans really willing to help other victims of aggression? Would they consider mutual defense agreements? Could they share their military technology? Captain Park Ji-woo, who had been promoted after his performance in the battle, was handling most of these informal discussions. His natural diplomacy had made him popular with the alien representatives, though Han could see he was overwhelmed by the attention. During a break in the proceedings, Ambassador Han was approached by a tall, thin creature she recognized as Minister Vorth from the Malari Union. The Malari had been one of the species that signed a peace treaty with the Korath rather than fight them. Ambassador Han, Minister Vorth said in careful standard galactic, "My government would like to discuss a formal alliance with humanity. We can offer technological exchanges, trade agreements, and strategic cooperation." Han had been expecting this. Dr. Yoon had briefed her on the likely political fallout from humanity's intervention. Every species in the galaxy was trying to figure out how to position themselves relative to this new power. Minister Vorth, humanity appreciates the Malaria Union's offer. However, we are not interested in military alliances or territorial agreements. Our intervention in Villani space was based on moral principles, not political strategy. Minister Vorth looked confused. Then what do you want? Surely you did not risk your fleet for nothing. We gained the knowledge that we did the right thing, Han replied, using the phrase that Admiral Lee had made famous. For humans, that is enough. The concept was clearly difficult for many species to understand. Galactic politics had been based on self-interest for so long that altruistic action seemed impossible. Later that evening, Han attended a smaller gathering hosted by the Villani government. The atmosphere was more relaxed, allowing for genuine conversation rather than formal diplomacy. She found herself talking with Fleet Admiral Zenth Mora, who had become an unexpected friend during the past weeks. Admiral, Han said, I am curious about something. Before our arrival, why did no other species help the Villani? You had trade relationships, diplomatic ties, even mutual defense agreements. Zenth's expression darkened. Because helping us would have meant becoming targets themselves. The Korath were too strong, and the potential cost was too high. It was easier to abandon us and hope the Korath would be satisfied with our territory. But you had proof that the Korath never stop expanding. They would have continued attacking other species. Of course, everyone knew that. But each species hoped the Korath would attack someone else first, giving them time to build defenses or negotiate separate peace treaties. Zenth paused. Your people were the first to say that stopping genocide was more important than political calculations. The conversation was interrupted by Captain Park, who approached with an urgent message display. Ambassador Admiral, he said quietly, we have received another distress call. Han read the message quickly. It was from a species called the Thorians, who were facing invasion by a different aggressive empire. They had specifically requested help from the humans who saved the Villani. Admiral Lee studied the message with professional interest. The Korvac Dominion, he mused. According to our new intelligence networks, they are almost as dangerous as the Korath. Sir, Captain Park said, what do we tell them? Before Admiral Lee could answer, Dr. Yoon Hana approached their group. She had been monitoring galactic communication networks and had more information. Admiral, this is bigger than one distress call. I am detecting similar messages from at least 6 different species. Word of our intervention has inspired other victims of aggression to ask for help. Han felt the weight of galactic attention settling on humanity's shoulders. Every decision they made now would set precedents for decades to come. Dr. Yoon, she said, in your assessment, are these legitimate requests for aid against genocide, or are some species trying to use us to settle political disputes? Dr. Yoon activated her portable computer and displayed a map of the galaxy. Red zones showed areas controlled by various aggressive empires. Yellow zones indicated species currently under attack. Blue zones represented free civilizations. Based on the intelligence data we have gathered, at least 4 of the requests appear to be genuine humanitarian crises. The others are more ambiguous and would require investigation. Admiral Lee made a decision that would shape humanity's role in the galaxy. We establish a doctrine, he said firmly. Humanity will intervene to stop genocide and protect innocent civilizations from extinction. We will not take sides in political disputes or territorial conflicts. We will not seek payment or territorial concessions, and we will show mercy to defeated enemies who surrender. Han nodded. It was the right choice, though she knew it would lead to complications that none of them could foresee. I will need to return to Earth for formal authorization, she said, but I believe our government will approve this policy. The gathering ended with the establishment of the Human-Villani Alliance, the first formal diplomatic agreement between Earth and galactic civilization. The treaty was simple: mutual friendship, technological cooperation, and shared commitment to protecting innocent species from aggression. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Ambassador Tyler presented them with a gift from the Villani people. It was a crystal sculpture depicting 2 species standing together, against a dark sky filled with stars. This represents the moment when the galaxy remembered that good people do not have to stand by and watch evil triumph, Tyler explained. It will be displayed in our capital city for as long as our civilization endures. The journey back to Earth was quiet. The crew of the human fleet had time to process what they had accomplished and what it meant for the future. They had not just won a battle or saved one species. They had changed the fundamental nature of galactic politics. Captain Shin Ye-jin, now promoted to admiral for her diplomatic work, spent the journey writing her report for Earth Command. She struggled to explain the scope of what had happened. Humanity had entered galactic civilization not as conquerors or traders, but as protectors. 6 months later, Admiral Lee stood in the same conference room where the mission had begun. The walls now displayed star charts showing human fleets deployed across the galaxy. Operation Guardian Angel had expanded into a permanent humanitarian intervention force. Earth's response to the galactic situation had been swift and decisive. The Global Council had approved the establishment of the Galactic Protection Initiative, with Admiral Lee as its first commander. Volunteers from across Earth's military had requested assignment to the new force. The communication console on Admiral Lee's desk activated with an incoming message. It was from a species called the Zephyrians, requesting help against the Hegemony expansion fleet. They